Commissioner Noble? He's here. Commissioner Noble?
Just go around them for right now then.
Okay, Commissioner Goss?
Here.
Commissioner Shores? Commissioner Marino?
Present.
Commissioner Waters? Commissioner Swap?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Noble's back. All righty. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item number 1, approval of minutes. A, regular meeting minutes of January 12th, 2021. I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second. Any further discussion? I hear none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay? None? All right, thank you. All right, 2, consideration of public comments. Those wishing to address the Planning and Zoning Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431. A, hybrid meeting in-person attendance, call-in participation, and written comments accepted. This is a hybrid meeting with 3 opportunities for public participation. 1, in person. Those wishing to address the commission in person do not need to pre-register, but space is limited and will be allotted on a first-come, first-served basis. Attendance priorities will be given to presenters first and then non-presenters. 2, call-ins. Those wishing to address the commission by telephone will need not to pre-register by 9 a.m. on Friday, February 9th, 2021 by emailing dwilliams@cityofkingman.gov and provide their name, address, and telephone number they will be using. Email and agenda item will like to comment on. Once registered, a link with additional instructions will be provided. Only those who have pre-registered will be admitted to the meeting. 3, written comments. All written comments should be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on February 9th, 2021 by emailing dwilliams@cityofkingman.gov or dropping them off at the Community Development Department in the main city complex at 310 North 4th Street. Members of the public can watch or listen to the meeting live via Channel 4 or on YouTube at youtube.com, City of Kingman. Do we have any?
No chairperson, we did not.
Thank you, Don. Item 3, reports. Past council action. You want to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The past council action of the city council on February 2nd, they approved the minor general plan amendment to change the property located at 135 East Oak Street from high-density residential to community commercial, and also rezoned the property to from R2 to C1. And also we have 2 new commission members this evening, Jen Swap and Gary Waters.
All right, thank you, Richard. I'd like to welcome aboard Jen Swap and Gary Waters. And then our last meeting, we had Jason. All welcome aboard and thank you. All right, item 4, new business, award recognition. This is my favorite part. I'm sorry to see 2 of my favorite people leaving, but I understand. Plaques will be presented to Scott McCoy and Charmaine Keith for their past service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. If I could have Charmaine please come up first. want a picture? Charmaine, I'd like to congratulate you, thank you for your 3 years of service. Come up here. Thank you, Charmaine.
Do you want a box?
Mr. Scott McCoy?
I'm not gonna hug you.
I know. Well, wait a minute here. Special caution, brass plated. Mr. McCoy, thank you very much for your 3 years of service. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
There you go.
Take care.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Want your box?
All right. Item number 2, or item B, abandonment case. A request from Ben and Kimberly Gross for the vacation abandonment of parcel A of Rancho Santa Fe 2, track 1943-A. The parcel was granted to the city of Kingman as a public walkway. The parcel is approximately 1,750 square feet and is located between the applicant's property, 2702 Diamond Spur Street, APN 322-31-006, and the property to the north, 2715 Diamond Spur Street. All right, Gary?
Sure. Thank you, Commission Chair and members of the Commission. For the new members, my name is Gary Likeness. I'm one of the staff planners here, and I'm here to present one of the cases tonight, and that is the one before you. It's a request to, an abandonment request for right-of-way, parcel A of Rancho Santa Fe 2, tract 1943A. The request is from Ben and Kimberly Gross, who are abutting property owners of parcel A. The parcel being considered is approximately 1,750 square feet in area and is located between lots 5 and 6 of Block 1 of the Rancho Santa Fe Tract 1943A subdivision. The final plat for 1943A was recorded in 1993, which included parcel A dedicated as a public walkway to be dedicated to the public and the city of Kingman. This parcel is considered public right-of-way. The area was annexed in 1990, and the purpose of the request was the applicant, we don't have design specifics, but they were interested in obtaining the 5 feet, it's overall 10 feet, and I'll get into that, but obtaining 5 feet to help them have more room to construct a garage on their property. Here is just a snapshot of the parcel, or the recorded plat, so it's very difficult to read at this scale. But on there, you can see I pointed out with the red arrow where parcel A is located. And within that 1943A, it's that blue line there. It's about 10 feet wide. And to give you a little bit better bearings here, this isn't zoomed out enough, but there's Luis Avenue. So I-40 is north of here. I'm not sure exactly how many feet, but beyond another tract of the subdivision, but I-40 north, and then what's the main road running? Southern, thank you. Southern Avenue is to the south a little ways. So it's give you a little bit of bearings there. And again, here is parcel A, shown in yellow this time, running between lots 5 and 6. The zoning of the Rancho Santa Fe subdivisions are R120, which is a single-family zone with a 20,000 square foot lot minimum size. The general plan for the vicinity, the neighborhood, is designated as low-density residential, 1 to 2 units, dwelling units per acre. The physical characteristics of that parcel A is Generally, it slopes upward from Diamond Spur Street gradually as it goes west. And so if you're standing in the middle of the block at the end of parcel A, you'd be looking down a little bit as you look towards Diamond Spur, and I have a better aerial here in a minute. There are, well, I should mention a site visit. It's in the staff report. We made 2 site visits, and there appeared to be no significant drainage or erosion issues on the site. Public utilities, there, I went out with the one of the engineers with Public Works, with engineering, and we were not able to find any utilities. It wasn't, we were just looking for it, but we were pretty sure there wasn't, and we just confirmed when we were out there. The transportation, as I mentioned, this is dedicated as a public walkway, and with another parcel that's similarly dedicated, I'll mention that later, parcel G of a different subdivision plat. Parcel A and that parcel G were to connect Diamond Spur Street with Rawhide Drive, so a pedestrian cross through there. I'll show you on this aerial photo here. In the top there, I show parcel A as it was shown on the recorded plat. So you can see it's 10 feet wide by approximately 170 feet. And to the right, where would be Diamond Spur Drive. On the aerial photo down beneath that, in yellow are the boundaries of parcel A, and to the right, it's blocked in my view, but it should be Diamond Spur Drive on the right, and then, or east, and then to the west, ultimately you would cross through that other parcel G to get to Rawhide Drive. But the parcel in yellow is, or the area in yellow is parcel A and is the subject property requested to be vacated in this application. I've also noted in the aerial photo, just labeled the applicant's property to the south there so you could see that. Also, this is a view looking from Diamond Spur, looking west. You can see that we have our zoning and public notice sign posted there. Again, it's a 10-foot wide. We've got built walls there now. Parcel A, you can kind of get an idea from this, but it rises, like I mentioned, to the middle of the block there. And you can see it has a significant increase as you get towards the rear of parcel A. And again, the applicant's property is to the left there. The site was posted on January 21st. We published in the Kingman Daily Miner on the 24th. Property owners within 300 feet of parcel A were sent notice in the mail of the proposal and the public hearing to be held. Staff comments during the staff review, the City Engineering Department approved or acknowledged approval of the request with condition, and this is verbatim. He mentioned there may be a small amount of stormwater that flows from the parcel west of this property to Diamond Spur Drive. If a new, I think it says wall, I can't see on my screen here. If a new wall is planned to be built, drainage should be blocked without a means for the water to travel to a public right-of-way. So engineering was just concerned that though it's not dedicated for a drainage easement, there may be, in fact, drainage occurring. And since they're parcel G, the other parcel to the west, there may be some drainage on that slope coming towards Diamond Spur, and if a wall was built there, it might cause ponding behind that wall. So there was some concern there that drainage be considered if there's any kind of wall put up. And that's reflected in staff's recommended motion or approval. No other comments were received. Part of the analysis for vacating a right-of-way is to look at the streets and sidewalks development rules and regulations that the city maintains. Section 5 basically says that right-of-ways, rights-of-way, are eligible, and parcel A is considered a right-of-way, so it's eligible to be vacated. The next section, 5.1b2, disallows these rights-of-way to be abandoned if there are any utilities, including sewer, but as we mentioned, there were none in parcel A. So it can be considered to be vacated. The next section in the streets section, or guidelines, 5-14, if the vacation of right-of-way is approved by the city council, any resolution of the vacation shall be subject to giving consideration by the owner of the abutting property in the amount deemed by the council to be commensurate with the value of that right-of-way. So parcel A, what is it worth? The applicant estimated and provided, provided an estimate of $2,000 as the value of that right-of-way. The second bullet, or the first bullet point there, the information submitted with the application did not include information of the potential interest of the other abutting property owner. So that is undetermined if they're interested in this. They haven't provided any opposition to it. But as the Arizona revised statutes require, and you can see that hyphen bullet point there, that when right-of-way is vacated, the title is basically split in half going to one property owner, half going to the other property owner. Again, the estimate is $2,000. The staff, again, with our staff report that we've provided and with this PowerPoint, we have provided a couple options for you to consider for making motions. This would be a recommendation to council. Council will be the ultimate authority on deciding whether or not the right-of-way would be vacated or not. So there's two recommendations there. One is for approval and one is for if the commission deemed it necessary to deny the request. The first one for approval just includes that condition that the city engineering mentioned about drainage. So that's taken care of if you chose that motion or that decision. And then also the item A there addresses the $2,000 and how the title and the parcel A would be split between the two property owners. But with that, I would just stand for any questions.
Any questions of the commission members?
Yeah, would this payment, sorry, this is.
No.
Would this payment of 2,000 be just from the person that initiated this?
I'm sorry, I can't hear what's going on.
Uh-oh.
So sorry. Would this $2,000 be from the person that initiated this petition, or would the other person benefiting from this property on the other side pay $2,000 too?
Per the application, the applicant is proposing $2,000 and staff understands that to be for the entire parcel A. So in a sense, they would be paying for that half that would go to the adjacent property owner. It'd be up to them to negotiate something with the adjacent property owner.
Okay, and do you know if this was an appraisal by the petitioner himself, or was this actually an appraiser that made this value?
As far as staff with the application material, it was just an estimate provided, no grounds for, or, material to provide an estimate or an appraisal or anything like that.
Okay, and if I could keep just a couple more questions. Is the sliver towards the back facing the rawhide portion of this affected, or is it just the sliver that you've had highlighted on one side of it?
Right. That's a good question, because they do connect these two parcels, parcel A, the subject property, and then parcel G to the west. Parcel G is a separate subdivision and is a separate parcel and was not included in this application, so only parcel A would be vacated.
Well, where I'm going with that is I'm a little concerned that the city right now has all of something which could be useful to it, which is a right-of-way for people to walk on. If we go through with this, we're going to have half of something that definitely can never be useful for anything. Given that the right-of-way is going to be broken in half, we'll just have a dead-end alley there. You said you received no comment from any of the public that live in the area. I'm a little concerned that the people on the other side of this might have some weeds or something that pile up in there, and it's their responsibility since, in effect, it's dead-ended. Now, the applicant said that there was a fire in there before, and that's apparently our city's responsibility, right, to take care of that.
That the applicant mentioned that in their materials, but didn't investigate when that occurred or
Okay, well, sorry, those are just my concerns.
Yeah. I might mention that when I was out at the site with the city, one of the city engineers, we did have just a brief over-the-wall discussion with an abutting property owner of parcel G, so the separate one, and he was actually interested in parcel A being vacated. He was like, oh, that's a good idea. Can I vacate parcel G? So they're, they may have interest after this. If it's adopted, they may come in, and we may even just encourage that so that it's not a dead end right of way.
Okay.
Parcel G is more closer to Rawhide.
Correct.
Do we know, besides Diamond Spur and Rawhide, is there any, I guess, walkway between the homes going east of Diamond Spur? Or is it only right here between these, basically two lots between Rawhide and Diamond Spur?
I don't have an aerial photo handy, but there are different areas within the subdivision that do have these types of connections. Some have been abandoned in the past, but some exist. But there's not a pedestrian walkway directly to the east across Diamond Spur Drive. So it wouldn't be directly connecting to another pedestrian walkway.
So you say that, not positive, but in the past you believe other such walkways like this have been abandoned in the development?
Yeah, and if you want more specifics, I might ask to see if Rich has any institutional knowledge to develop that further.
Well, I can at least confirm that, yes, there have been walkways that were abandoned in the past, partially because they were never required to be improved. The subdivision requires those walkways to go in as part of the subdivision design requirements because of the length of the blocks. But at the time Rancho Santa Fe was developed, which was in the early to mid-90s, there was no specific requirement that anyone develop or improve those walkways. So several of them have been abandoned over the years.
So this isn't the first. Yeah, because what kind of piques my interest is, as you looked on that picture from Diamond Spur to Rawhide, you notice a slope going up, and I'm thinking, well, that isn't a very cohesive walkway if I was living in that, so it's, to me, it looks like it's just been dead.
Well, I have a question on the parcel G that sits behind this A that has that slope. So if we abandoned A, the property owner, and G right there, if it does rain and starts pulling water, and who's responsible for that? I mean, are you going to require that on this abandoned parcel that it has the upgrades where it doesn't cause any kind of flooding into the neighboring homes and stuff? Because that is quite a steep slope.
Right, that's a good question. To maybe add some clarification, if you look at the parcel in yellow on the overhead, parcel A, as you go to the middle of the block, so you're going west, it crowns in the middle between the two parcels, parcel A and parcel G. And then it starts to slope downward towards Rawhide Drive. So theoretically, drainage would shed to those different directions. However, that's not defined 100%. And so I think what the city engineering department was concerned about is if parcel G, the other parcel, does crown a little bit more in parcel G and actually sheds a little bit of the stormwater onto parcel A, that the city engineering and reflected in the condition of approval, or the condition of approval, would be that if there is any blockage or walls proposed, that there is a means for stormwater to still travel through the old parcel A.
So would that be a requirement for the new property owners of A to put that into their plans? Because isn't their intent to build a garage?
Right.
And it looks like, and there's quite a variance between the property level and that walkway. It looked to me, I'm just guessing, between 2.5, 3 feet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's quite, it looks to be about almost 3 feet. And it looks like as the property goes up towards G, that it actually slopes up even higher.
Yeah, and then comes back down as you go to Rawhide. That's a good point. the thing to consider, even if this was abandoned and the applicant were to receive 5 feet of that parcel A, with setbacks in that zone, which R120 is 10-foot side yard, they would still, even if that line, their new property line was down the middle of this diagram here, parcel A, their building would still have to be 10 feet away from that middle, so they wouldn't even encroach into this old parcel A, if you will.
So all it basically is doing is allowing him to be able to get a garage within the 10 feet
Up against the fence.
of the new, hopefully, property line.
Yeah, even as you look at it there, they'd still have to be 5 feet from that wall that's there now.
Right,
Because overall, it's a
Right.
10-foot setback, yeah,
Right.
okay.
So I get it now, okay.
yeah. So they're not actually intending on building into here. They're
No.
just going to use the setbacks as, okay.
However, with that being said, right now, all the parcels, all these 4 parcels that are involved in parcel G and parcel A have built walls already. So maybe not right away, because they've invested that, but down the line, if they were to tear down walls, they could build walls on the new parcel lines.
Right.
And that's where the city engineer said, if that happens, make sure drainage can still occur.
Follow.
Okay.
Any further questions from commission members?
I have a question. I'm a little bit confused. I drove by that property today, and I'm wondering how old this picture is. When I drove by, it looked like there's not a wall up on the applicant's property and that they're actually building a home currently.
You may have had the wrong parcel. I think there is one to the south, a little ways. You may have had the wrong parcel, because this picture here in front of you
Yeah.
was taken on January 21st.
So very recently.
Yeah, yes, with our zoning sign included in that.
I mean, I put my map in to go to 2707 Diamond Spur, but I don't know. Okay, so you're saying that is how it currently looks, that there is a wall up right there
Correct.
and the property is right there. Okay. And
There's-
I'm,
There's no chance that they just started construction and figured that this would just pass through in the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
So I'm asking you, is there a possibility that since this picture was taken about 2.5 weeks ago, that the wall's been removed, as the commissioner says, Swap said, and any chance that they've actually already started making adjustments and improvements in anticipation of this passing through planning and zoning and then city council?
That's correct, that could have occurred. I think the applicant is on a Zoom meeting right now, so they could answer more questions if you had those of them.
Yeah, let's bring them
I
in.
think they're muted, I believe.
I have to be dismissed. And then you can have the applicant come up and share.
Is there any other questions from the commission members?
I just have one really quick. Is Rawhide and this other road, is there currently a sidewalk running perpendicular to this? Or does it just end at the road?
The path here is just dirt, and it intersects with Rawhide improved and Diamond Spur
The
improved.
sole reason for asking, the reason why it's probably never been used is because if there isn't a sidewalk there, there's no sign saying this is egress, they're never gonna use it.
I don't think that development had sidewalks.
Yeah.
If I'm correct.
I think you're right. Yeah.
It does not have sidewalks.
Okay, so, and would this be the city's job to pave the sidewalk? You know, put some concrete on it
You mean through this pathway?
through this pathway?
That was never negotiated at the time of subdivision plating, so that's a big question. But it is city right-of-way.
Okay. And would the city have utility rights through this easement?
It's not platted, dedicated for utilities.
That's all. I'm sorry.
Any further questions?
I have just one other question. So if the applicant were, so I understand that it's 10 feet wide, and if the applicant were to take 5 feet, which I understand is what they're requesting, if if the home on the other side did not want that 5 feet, what would happen to that additional 5 feet?
If they absolutely did not, and I'm not 100% sure, but it would be deeded to them and they could sell it to the other applicant, or the applicant. So it could be transferred to them theoretically.
So they would not pay for that land? They would not need to pay for that land?
Again, with this application, the 2,000 would cover the entire parcel A, and that is not in partnership with the abutting property owner. So I don't know how the property owner would want to recover any money, if at all. But that's something you could ask them, I suppose, if they're on Zoom.
Okay.
Any further questions? I hear none. Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you so much.
I'll open it up to the public. Do I have any comments or questions from the public?
I'm the applicant. I would like to answer maybe a couple of your questions that have gone by.
Please do. Could you state your name?
Sure, my name is Kim Gross.
Okay.
Do you need my address?
That's good.
Okay, all right. If you'll restore the picture back where the yellow line is, then maybe I can offer some clarification for you guys. Commissioner Swap, I believe you were actually on the other side of our house. There is a new construction. There's the block wall between us and the property owner that is currently constructing a home. We've spoke to everybody that's immediately surrounding us to the north and to the west of us. So our intention, you can see that our RV is sitting there. When we originally purchased the home, we were told that since there was an easement there, that we would be allowed to come 5 feet off of our existing wall due to the easement. When we actually bought the house, got down to the process of going to apply for our building permit on the garage, we were told that wasn't the case. So that's why we went down this road of trying to get the easement abandoned to us. We do not have any intention whatsoever of building in that easement or removing our existing block wall. We simply just need the additional square footage so that we can build our garage 5 feet off of our existing block wall. That easement was cleared by my husband. It was completely full of weeds when we purchased the property. And like I say, we were putting a little small retaining wall up in our backyard and it did catch fire. So the fire department came, put the fire out. It has never been a walkway, even though it may have been dedicated as that. It's not something you could even walk over. I mean, it's full of rocks, it's undulated. Like I say, it was full of weeds. We've kept that clean. So we don't have any intentions of changing how it actually looks at this juncture. We're just trying to get the permit in order to build on where our existing block wall aligns. And then did somebody have an additional question? I think maybe that wasn't answered.
I'm thinking you answered everything, ma'am.
Okay. We have spoke to the property owners to the north of us. They are fully aware of what we're doing. They, as I understand, and certainly they're entitled to the additional 5 feet if we're able to get the abandonment for the property. They don't want it. They may change their mind at some point. Either way, we'll either take the 5 feet or the 10 feet, and we can work that out between the adjoining property owner. I believe, as your liaison said, the property to the west of us had expressed interest to us as well. They were asking how we went about the process because they were wanting to have the G parcel abandoned as well. So you might get a request from them at some point. So I thank you for you guys considering our application tonight and for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any, please come up and state your name and, no, you don't.
Yeah, my name is Charmaine Keith, and I just wanted to offer a couple things. One is the value is what people will pay. And the only value it would be is to these two neighbors. It's not really a value to anybody else. You can't do anything else with it. So if somebody was to give you an assessed value, it would be nothing except what the neighboring part of. So I think $2,000 is, as a realtor, I could say that now. I think that's fair. The other thing I want to ask, I don't know if I can ask this, but have you guys seen the one guy that used to come here all the time? I was worried about him. What's his name? That used to come here every day?
Wes?
Yeah. I was wondering if anybody's heard from him.
Oh, no.
Okay, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine. Any further questions from the audience? I see none. Thank you. I'll open it back up to the commission members.
So the way I see this is it benefits the city because the city won't be responsible for weed abatement in the future. That'll fall on the property owner.
I agree with you there, Jeb. I think it's obvious. It's been neglected. So now it just puts the onus now on to the property owners to take care of that space.
Ms. Gross, sorry if I could ask you really quick.
Sure.
Are you party to a homeowners association out there that, that mandates weeds be cut down or anything along those lines?
I don't know that there's not an HOA per se that we pay into to have those things maintained and cleared. My understanding as far as what Commissioner Noble said was that is currently the city's responsibility. I've been in Kingman for 54 years. I was born here and been raised here. I mean, certainly I don't drive by here all the time until I actually live here, but these areas are never maintained by the city. I think there's other higher priorities. And just to add what Charmaine said, I agree. There's no value to the city for this parcel. The only value is when you abandon it and put the responsibility on the property owners, and then it goes on the tax roll system. So the advantage to the city is that one, you don't have to maintain it or improve it. And number two, you're going to start collecting tax revenue on it. And the fact that we came up with the $2,000, what I did was just took the assessed value of our property and divided that by the square footage. And that's how I came up with the offer of $2,000. I think it's a fair offer to the city and to the additional tax revenue that will be collected throughout the years with that being part of our parcel.
Thank you, Ms. Gross. I understand the effort. Just in appraisal, there's typically an appraised by date and when a value is good for. And, I understand this is a sliver parcel, but there will be a value that can be determined accurately using different, methods of appraisal, different approaches to value. So what I'm concerned about is if we do have other people, like say with parcel G or perhaps other areas where we have these transgressing parcels, if maybe people are arriving at different values for these parcels that the city is in effect giving these owners, at different values, it can kind of muddy things. And back to the original question, I am a little concerned that right now we have a single entity in control of these weeds right now. Without an HOA, there could arise cases where some of, different owners owning different quadrants of these split up parcels are handling their weeds differently and could be bad for your neighborhood. So anyway, I'm just trying to see things from your guys' perspective, and I appreciate you answering the question.
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions from discussion of commission members?
I used to live in Rancho Santa Fe, and I also experienced the same thing with the walkways, that they were never cleared, and that it was kind of a scary thing for children to walk through because you wouldn't be sure whether there would be snakes in those areas.
Let's be perfectly clear. If you vote to proceed.
So I appreciate someone being willing to clean, to take care of those. And I have found that the homeowners are the ones who are most likely to clean those walkways and keep them clear. I think I appreciate that owners have no intention of moving the wall, so that keeps the aesthetics of the neighborhood the way that they are. I guess my concern would be, would that allow future homeowners to kind of change the aesthetics of the neighborhood? I guess that's just a small question that I have.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. With an exception for like the current property owner, you know, to maintain it as far as the weeds go. And let me back up a minute. Before I make the motion, is there any way that we can add in there that maybe that it needs to remain like this and not be built into? Is there any way that we can add that in there, Rich?
Well, I think the setback requirements will kind of guide that, because it is minimum 10-foot side yard setback for that area. So each property owner is only going to get 5 feet to the center of this parcel. So there's going to be no situation where they would actually build into that, other than maybe a wall would be the only thing they could build in there.
Okay,
No
and then a
structures.
wall could have the drainage
Right.
and stuff.
I
All right.
think
And
if
the
you go with,
condition,
I think if you probably go with A and B as stated, it probably
Yeah, okay, so,
covers everything you're thinking.
yeah. So I'll make a motion to approve with A and B for the property owner.
I have a motion, I have a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second. Was that a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Can I have a roll call vote, please, Don?
Chairman Frederickson,
Approve.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
Approve.
Commissioner Shores,
Approve.
Commissioner Marino,
Approve.
Commissioner Waters, Commissioner Swap,
Approve.
Thank you. All right, item C, we're on C. A request from Travin Pennington, applicant, and Praise Chapel International, property owner, for approval of a conditional use permit to allow the construction, of a mini storage facility for boats and RVs on property zone C2, commercial, community business. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of Railroad Street and Southern Avenue and incorporates portion of APN 321-07-072 and 321-07-052. This site is approximately 1.65 acres and is described as portion of the northeast corner of Government Lot 2, Section 19, T21N, R16W of the GS&RM, Mojave County, Arizona. Richard?
good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is conditional use permit CUP 20-001. The applicant is Travin Pennington, and the property owner is Praise Chapel International. And the request is for a conditional use permit to allow the construction of main storage facility for RVs and boats on property that's zone C2, located at the southeast corner of Railroad Street and Southern Avenue. This property should seem fairly familiar to the commission members that were here in November. For the new commissioners, we'll go through this in a little more detail. There was a amendment to the general plan and a rezoning of the property that was approved back in November and December by the council. So this is the final step or third step of the process to consider a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a main storage facility for RVs and boats on the property. This is the general plan map for the area. You can see the previous orange color on there is the intermediate density residential designation that was previous to this property. The map itself has not been updated yet, but it is now officially approved under Resolution 5318. It's community commercial, which then allowed the C2 zoning to be applied to the property, which was approved by ordinance number 1914. So it is commercially zoned now. The property currently is vacant. You can see that it's near some single-family homes. To the south is a commercial area along Wallapai Mountain Road, including Praise Chapel. Gas and Grub is just to the south of this property, or just to the south of this aerial, just off the map. There's a well-service business on the west side of Railroad Street. Cecil Davis Park is to the east. This is a street and utility map. Access is off of Railroad Street and Southern Avenue. Southern has a 70-foot wide right-of-way that's paved with curb and gutter. There is water and sewer lines that serve the area. Railroad Street has a 60-foot wide right-of-way and is paved but has no curb, gutter, or sidewalk along the portion that joins this property. There is a sidewalk on the west side of the street, though. A small portion of the property, the northwestern corner, does extend into partly into a flood zone. Flood zone X, which is the 500-year floodplain, and a tiny sliver does extend into the flood zone AE, which is within the 100-year flood zone. This is a view looking east from Railroad Street of the property towards Walpais. This is looking south along Railroad Street toward Wallapai Mountain Road. We sent notices to all the surrounding property owners by mail, posted the site on January 21st. Public notice ran in the Kingman Minor. We didn't receive any comments from the public. There was really no objections from any departments or agencies. The city engineering department did comment on the need for curb and sidewalk to be installed across the frontage of Railroad Street and Southern Avenue at the time of development. There would be also the need for a drainage analysis, and MUC, which is a Municipal Utilities Commission, and council approval for water services would also be required, as this is an unsubdivided parcel. The building official, community development manager had no comments, indicated approval. The Mojave County Flood Control did indicate that there would be a need for a floodplain use permit, however, for the property because of the floodplain situation. Frontier Communications had no concerns. The developer, however, would have to compensate Frontier for any facilities that would have to be relocated as part of the development of the property. So this is a conceptual site plan showing the layout of the property. It would be a single access to the property from off of Railroad Street. The center would be paved. They intend to develop it in 2 phases. The first phase would be a 9,600 square foot building with 12 16 by 50 storage bays. And the second phase would be a 11,200 square foot building with a second 4,000 square foot building, a total of 19 storage bays that would be also 16 by 50. The interior area would also be paved, as I mentioned, for maneuvering of the larger vehicles and trailers. In accordance with section 29.310 of the Kingman zoning ordinance, this is the conditional use permit section. The Planning and Zoning Commission should make findings on the following elements as it applies to this particular case. One is to look at the applicable regulations and determine whether or not this is in accordance with them. As I mentioned, the Kingman General Plan was modified and the property has been rezoned to C2. The C2 district does allow many storage uses by conditional use permit, so this is all in accordance with the requirements. The other thing I mentioned earlier was that water service, however, will need to be approved by the City Council after it's reviewed by the Municipal Utilities Commission. Bulk regulations, the building height itself is not known. It will need to be obviously tall enough to accommodate a large RV. The maximum allowable building height in this district is 50 feet, so we would imagine that the height will be significantly less than that. The site is 1.65 acres. That exceeds the minimum lot size. They are intending to do a parcel plat of the property, as this is currently between two different parcels, so they will need to reconfigure the property lines and have that be resurveyed. Property does abut R16 zoning to the south and east. There's a minimum setback of 10 feet as required from those south and eastern lot lines that will be created. The conceptual site plan shows a 15-foot setback from those property lines, and so this would be in accordance with that requirement. There are no other setback requirements for this location. The property abuts, as I mentioned, the R16 property, and there is a requirement that a masonry fence be put up 6 to 8 feet in height between the property and the residentially zoned property that it abuts. And the narrative does describe an intent to construct a 6-foot block wall around the entire property. So that's in accordance as well. There's no specific standard for parking requirements associated with the mini storages. However, as I mentioned, there is a large paved area that's approximately 80 feet in width that would be used for maneuvering, and it would appear to be adequate for larger RVs and boats and trailers. Doesn't appear that this facility would have any adverse impact on surrounding properties or the public in general. Traffic patterns, according to their narrative, they're expecting a very light amount of traffic that will be generated by this facility, perhaps 1 or 2 trips per day. The conceptual plan, as I mentioned, indicates frontage at Railroad Street, and that street will have to be improved with paving, curb, gutter, and sidewalk at the time of development, as will Southern Avenue. And it'll be necessary to complete the sidewalk connection between the end of the curb return at the intersection of Southern and Railroad to the property line. It doesn't appear that this property will create any nuisances for the area. However, there is the need for a floodplain use permit, as mentioned by Mojave County Flood Control, to mitigate any floodplain impacts that could arise from this development. And also, the city engineer mentioned that a drainage analysis will need to be prepared as required by the Kingman Master Drainage Plan. So with that, our recommendation is for approval with the following conditions. 1, completion of the street improvements along the property frontages of Southern Avenue and Railroad Street. That would be at the time of development. 2, landscaping shall be placed along the sides of the property adjacent to Southern and Railroad Street to provide a visual buffer between the walls and buildings on site and nearby residences and properties. 3, a floodplain use permit would be obtained by Mojave County Flood Control, and that a drainage analysis will be prepared as required by the Kingman Master Drainage Plan. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Richard, I got one.
Sure.
When they landscape around the perimeter, are they going to be responsible for the duties of maintaining the landscape and not falling back onto the city?
The adjoining property owner is responsible for maintaining the landscaping areas between the finished portion of the improvements, the edge of the sidewalk, and their property line, and then onto their property line. That's actually a requirement of the street policy.
Okay, and then I doubt things had probably changed with our new ordinances and updates and landscaping wise, but if there's any changes, they got to go along with the new, or are we going to with the old?
Well, it would depend on when they submit their building permits.
Okay.
If the permits are submitted prior to the effective date of the new zoning code, then the old code would apply. Otherwise, the new code would be applicable to this development.
And we're going to require, I guess, sprinkler system or for the landscaping.
We already do require
Okay.
that, so.
Fair enough. Questions, anybody? I hear none. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. I'll open it up to the general public. Any questions from the general public? I see none, I hear none. Thank you. Open up discussion and commission members.
It looks like a good project to me. The only concern I tangentially have is the park being close by, and the height could be up to 50 feet. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be, but we don't have a definite right now. Again, if any of the public came in to speak against it, there are several houses which are right by it, but nobody showed up, so.
Yeah, we didn't have anybody, I believe, in November either, so it was,
Right.
I think, a well.
Right.
More an observation.
Yep. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, the park is from the back of that property, probably, 500 feet, 600 feet away, I would say, to the east of it. So, but yeah, and again, with building heights that are definitely not going to hit 50 feet, I don't see it being an issue.
All right, any further questions?
I heard that they plan to build a block wall. Is that something that could change? A block wall would look really nice with landscaping in that area, considering the park and the community gardens are nearby. So that would be such a positive contribution. Is that something that would be likely to change or possible to change?
That's Travin, could you please step up and state your name?
My name is Travin Pennington. I'm a resident in Kingman, Arizona. I'm involved in this project. Our intention is to build a 6-foot masonry wall around the entire project. There'll be a electronic gate that's kind of a key code to get into it, and then a high-quality landscape job all the way around the perimeter of this project. That's our intentions, and we have no intention to change that.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? All right, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? I hear none. Roll call vote, please, Don.
Chairman Frederickson,
Approve.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
Approve.
Commissioner Shores,
Approve.
Commissioner Marino,
Approve.
Commissioner Waters,
Approve.
Commissioner Swap,
Approve.
Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Item D, minor general plan amendment case GP 21-0001. A request from Travin Pennington, applicant and High Desert Land Development, LLC, property owner for approval of a minor amendment to the Kingman General Plan 2030. The proposal is to change the current land use designation from intermediate density residential, 9 to 16 dwelling units per acre, to community commercial. The subject property is located at 3180 and 3186 Beverly Avenue and is approximately 12,000 square feet. The property is further described as Lot 6 and 7, Block 1, Serena Grace Meadows, Tract 6006, APN 311-33-006 and 311-33-007. Richard?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a minor general plan amendment, GP 21-008. Let's see, the applicant is Travin Pennington, the property owner is High Desert Land Development LLC, and the request is to change the land use designation of this property from intermediate density residential, 9 to 16 dwelling units per acre, that's in the general plan, to community commercial at 3180 and 3186 Beverly Avenue. If this amendment is approved, it would facilitate the consideration of a concurrent request to rezone the subject property that's proposed in the case that follows, which is RZ 21-001. This is the general plan map showing the vicinity of the area. The property itself is shown in the red box with the star. As you can see, it's surrounded by the intermediate density residential designation. To the north and east is an area of single-family homes, which is medium density residential, 3 to 8 units per acre. The property the overall subdivision borders Eastern Street, and also the railroad is parallels Eastern, and to the west of that is an area of highway service commercial, which is fast food and the truck stop area over there, an area of regional commercial, which is where the Cal Ranch is going in, the former Kmart area, and then community commercial area, which is where Bash's is further to the northeast. And this shows the surrounding zoning of the property. As mentioned, the property is R2. The subdivision itself does have a mix of R2 and R16 zoning. The R2 zoning would be for duplex type development on the properties, and the R16 would be for single family. It's mostly single family to the east and north of the property, also single family south of I-40. The railroad right-of-way itself is industrially zoned, and then to the west of that is the area that's zoned C3, which is where the truck stops and the other commercial development along Andy Devine is located. This is a street and utility map. There is water, a 12-inch water main and a 12-inch sewer main in Eastern. That's the nearest improvements. The subdivision itself has not been approved yet, so there are no utilities or street improvements for the streets within the subdivision as of yet. A couple site photos taken of the site. You could see there is sort of a sign on the property that's basically a subdivision sign, or I think like a for sale sign. That's pretty close to where where this property is located. It may be a little bit closer to Eastern, but it's in that area. So we sent notices within 300 feet of the property, which is pretty much all owned by the applicant. So we didn't really receive any comments from the public. Site was posted, notice placed in Daily Miner. There weren't really any objections or issues from any departments or agencies. The city engineer department did mention the need to provide a drainage report in association with the development of the site. So as I mentioned, this is a general plan amendment. The process first requires us to determine whether it's a minor or major amendment based upon the criteria in the general plan, or in the in the city municipal code. This qualifies as a minor general plan amendment. Those amendments to the general plan shall only be approved if the amendment is consistent with policies and objectives of the rest of the plan, and it furthers the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Kingman. So we looked at some relevant policies and objectives within the land use element of the general plan, which is it's divided in several different elements. That element includes Objective 2, which states the city's objective is to provide aesthetically pleasing streetscapes to accommodate all modes of transportation. The growth area element includes Objective 3, which encourages a planned mixture of land uses that provides for a choice of transportation modes, which reduces automobile dependency, provides for needed public open space, and creates a sense of place. And within that objective, policy 3.2 encourages commercial development to occur around identifiable nodes and discourages strip commercial development. So the proposal for a designation of community commercial with that concurrent rezoning that I mentioned to C3 would result in a land use designation and commercial land uses that would be separate from other established commercial nodes in the general plan. So it'd be kind of a standalone situation. And this would appear to conflict with the policy 3.2 that I mentioned above in the growth area element. The developer ultimately intends to apply for a conditional use permit to place a billboard on the property. This is why we're going through this process. That would be the third step in this request. In looking at this possibility, the provision of billboard on this property in the future would tend to detract from providing an aesthetically pleasing streetscape along I-40 and the abutting streets, including Beverly Avenue, and that could conflict with Objective 2 of the land use element. Second section is to review the compatibility with other land uses in the area. If the amendment is to change the land use map, which this one would be that, an additional finding must be made that the proposed change will be compatible with other land uses existing or planned.
Hey, Rich,
in
we
the
lost
vicinity.
you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Can you guys hear us?
Now we can.
Oh, okay. Okay. At what point did you lose the audio? Because I can always go back.
It's about 60 seconds.
Oh, 60 seconds, okay. Well, we'll just go back to the end of the previous slide. Don't know what happened there. As I was saying that the intent of the property is to develop the site for a billboard. So based upon the, looking at the objectives and policies that we mentioned up there, one of the concerns is that a billboard on the property would detract from providing an aesthetically pleasing streetscape along I-40 and the abutting Beverly Avenue, which could conflict, excuse me, with Objective 2 of the land use element. So the next section is to review the compatibility with other land uses in the vicinity. If the amendment is to change the land use map, additional finding must be made that the proposed change will be compatible with other land uses existing or planned in the vicinity. The community commercial designation, which is what's intended on the site, is mostly intended for major retail service uses that are generally buffered from residential areas. The community commercial designation located within a future mixed residential area that is otherwise designated intermediate density residential may not be compatible. A commercial billboard or other commercial uses could also detract from the aesthetics of the area and negatively impact property values and the livability of existing and planned residential development in the immediate area. One of the things that the narrative had mentioned is the presence of other billboards in the area, including a community billboard that is down on I-40 east of this site. This was erected back in the early 1980s, along with a couple other community billboards at that time that were considered sort of entrance signs into Kingman. At the time that area was developed, or the billboard was put up, it was really a pretty not very well developed area. And also we were under a different general plan at the time. So the presence of those additional signs in the area shouldn't necessarily be considered setting a precedent for having additional signs in this area. So in conclusion, in accordance with the municipal code, it appears that the amendment would not be consistent with the policies and objectives of the rest of the general plan that are intended to further public health, safety, welfare of the citizens of Kingman, and the proposed change may not be compatible with other land uses existing or planned in the vicinity. In cases where the commission is considering amending the land use plan, basically your only role is to consider either recommendation of approval or denial. There's no conditions of approval or denial. The planning commission recommendation will be forwarded to the city council regardless of what it is for a public hearing and final action unless it's withdrawn by the applicant. Based upon our findings, the planning staff is recommending denial of the request to change the land use designation as requested. With that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
I have several questions / comments. Firstly, the billboard, there's a billboard, a full-size billboard just a few hundred feet to the west that's erected there along the railroad, correct?
There is one, yes, there is one in the railroad right-of-way, right next to the freeway, that's correct.
Right, and so I'm just trying to understand what harm another one causes when you take the totality of the signage that's already there, and anybody that moves into that neighborhood knows that that billboard is there. I don't know what another one does to harm that. Then you take the fact that there's an entire truck stop right across the street that has trucks idling 24 hours a day. And then they also approved, what was it, about a year and a half ago, they expanded the parking to add even more trucks to be able to park there and idle overnight and make noise 24 hours a day. So anybody living in that neighborhood or even moving into that neighborhood would be able to take that into account along with the interstate traffic going by 24 hours a day. I think it's 80,000 vehicles a day go by. So I'm not sure why a sign is a bigger nuisance or more of a concern to the public than all of the totality of all those other things that one could take into account.
Yeah, if I could respond to your comment, the location of the sign to the west there, it is actually in an I-1 zone. That actually makes the sign a non-conforming sign. I'm not sure its history or how it was approved in that location. Currently, our zoning ordinance does not allow billboard signs in the I-1 district. It does allow that in the C3 district, but it is restricted to certain areas in the sign corridor, which is defined in the staff report. So it's fairly restrictive as to where billboards can occur. In this particular property, it's not currently either designated in the general plan as for commercial development, nor is it zoned that way. So I think the anticipation would be that this would not be a property that would be developed in any commercial way for things such as signs or other commercial development.
And so that the small square with the star in it would be rezoned and have a billboard erected, and then the surrounding neighborhood at some point would be developed. Is that what you're saying, as a residential eventually?
That would be yes, that's how we would imagine it would happen. You'd have a billboard on this where the square is, and then the remainder of the site would still be residentially developed.
And so as someone, if I were house shopping there, that's something I would have to take into account and just make a decision based on, what's best for me and my family if we want to live in a place where not only is there a sign there, but there's also a truck stop and a freeway and a train going by, and take the totality of that into account. And so I just want to make sure I understood that correctly, but it's not like it's tricked, no one's gonna be tricked into buying a home next to the sign. They're gonna know it's there, or the billboard in that property, they're gonna know it's that way before they move in, just like they know there's a truck stop next door, I take it.
Well, if the billboard was constructed there, then obviously they would be able to see that was there, and as you're correct, you'll be correct that they would be able to make a decision whether that was something they still would want to live next to.
Yeah, I just wanted to just point all that out, that whole area is, for me personally, I wouldn't want to live next to the truck stop or the highway or any of it, and the sign, any type of billboard would be a minor issue for me, compared to everything else, the totality of everything else going on in that area. But I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly and be sure to voice my questions about that, so thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Thank you, Jason.
I have a question. So you're saying that the billboard that's already up there, it was constructed back in the early 80s, when it wasn't actually a housing development at that time, it was pretty much rural, right?
Yeah, and it's not the billboard that we could see on the map and next to the railroad tracks. To another one that's further down. If you leave Kingman, you've probably seen it on the left side of the road, or if you're coming back into town. Mm-hmm. That area was a subdivision at the time, but it was largely undeveloped at the time, I believe.
So you're making the request for the denial because you actually don't want to repeat the history of the early 80s, because the area of where they're requesting hasn't been developed? Is this why the staff is making this recommendation?
Yeah, I don't know that I would use the other billboard as a precedent, plus, you know, we've traditionally been interested in seeing billboards confined to areas that are already zoned for that purpose. And generally the concern is that if you spot zone one little location like this, that's generally not considered good planning practice.
Right.
So those are our concerns.
Well, I don't feel that a billboard, even though there is one there, and I know where you're talking about, it really doesn't conform. And if we're trying to, you know, raise the aesthetics of the master plan of Kingman and stuff, I think we have to start somewhere.
Do we know, does the city own any billboards in that corridor there?
The city doesn't actually own any billboards. The community billboard is actually on city-owned property, but my understanding is that it is maintained by the Chamber of Commerce. And there was an agreement back in the early 1980s to, I guess they sell one side of it for regular advertising, and the other side of it is to promote the city of Kingman, to promote the area.
When you say that's owned by the city, though? They're on their property.
Hold your comments, please.
Please. So do we know what the applicant, or maybe we can ask that when we open it up. I'll let that be. Any further questions from the commission members?
I just have one really quick. I think Councilman Marino made some great points. But when we made that 300-foot radius to inform people, was that just within the outer boundary of that parcel there?
That would be correct. You can see there's some houses to the east of this. They were not within that 300-foot radius area. So.
What I'd just be concerned about is they're looking due west towards Sunset, and this is going to be a pretty big billboard. You know, that's right in their line of path, and if they weren't, they're still going to be affected, even if there's like a 300 that didn't quite reach them. I'm just curious if we're going to have some feedback from the public on this before we go forward with it. But again, Commissioner Marino made some pretty good points, and I partially agree with. So we'll see. Thank you.
Any further questions from commission members for Richard?
I also appreciated Commissioner Marino's comments. That gave me something to think about. I had a couple of questions. That land chunk, how large is that? Is that about 4 acres?
Are you talking about the subdivision that it's located in,
yes,
or just the property itself?
Those two parcels, I think, were close to 1/3 of an acre, and then
right.
The entire subdivision, is that about 4 acres?
8.97, I'm told.
8.97, and do you know, would the billboard have lights on it?
That would be a question for the applicant. I don't know at this stage.
Okay, and then the other question that I had, I drove by there today and I thought I saw a sign that said something about how many units would be built on those 8.97 acres. Do you know how many units they intend or are allotted to be built in that area?
Well, there are a certain number of lots that are, the ones that are orange on the map, there are 2. Those are intended to allow up to 2 units per lot, and the remainder of the subdivision would be just single family, 1 unit per lot. I don't know, do you recall what the number of lots are, Travis?
If you take these 2 lots out, there's 40 lots.
There's 4, okay. So there's 40 lots left if these 2 are removed. And it's fairly equally divided between duplex lots and single-family lots.
So there would be about 60 properties?
There'd be about 60 units possible within the subdivision.
May I ask a question? Sorry, I wasn't interrupting. Was I, Commissioner Swap?
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess I almost need to wait until Mr. Pennington comes up, but I do have a question that maybe you all could answer for me. Is this property is this something that's going to be developed? And if so, are all the improvements are going to be done by the developer? And because right now it's just a dusty lot, so with some weeds and tumbleweeds on it. It's going to enrich the community by having this entire parcel developed, regardless of a billboard, I imagine. I was just curious if that was something that was planned.
Well, in association with the approval of the subdivision in, I think it was 2007, there were improvement plans that were approved. There is a property escrow, I believe, a property escrow agreement association with this subdivision, which means they can't individually sell any lots until those improvements are completed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission members for Richard?
The houses that are on Central, are those newer homes?
I would say they've been built generally within the last 10 to 15 years. There are some newer, it's a mixed area of newer and older homes. There was an improvement district that was put in maybe 20 years ago, and that's when it really kind of spurred the development of the area. But the subdivision itself is quite old. It was platted, I believe, in the late 1920s or early 1930s without improvements.
Okay. And then I don't understand this, and I just was curious about the implications for precedent of making an amendment like this.
Well, I suppose the precedent, if this were to be approved, you might see additional requests similar to this in other places along I-40 or other areas that we do potentially allow billboards. The sign corridors are along I-40, Andy Devine and West Beale Street, and there are places along those corridors that are not presently zoned C3 that would allow a billboard. So you might see additional general plan amendments and zoning requests for other sites for additional billboards.
Keeping in mind that it requires not only the city, but it requires, to put a billboard up, there's a bunch of other things that have to be done, right? Like, does the state have to be involved in different things like that?
That would be true. It's because it is on I-40, ADOT also has to approve the sign, is my understanding.
So then they have very specific places and requirements. So we wouldn't necessarily see these things sprouting up everywhere. If one of them's added, it's not going to be like a snowball effect where suddenly there's properties that meet the requirements of ADOT and suddenly we have like a dozen billboards pop up around the interstate, right?
Well, I can't speculate what could happen in the future. I know that by approving this site for this purpose, there's a chance that you could see additional requests happen in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, didn't in our last meeting we approve for the city to allow to put billboards on the golf course and along Andy Devine, I'm assuming, closer to the freeway, Beale?
So there is a few changes in the new zoning code if it does ultimately get approved. One would be that you could place them in areas zoned I-1 and I-2, which would make the billboard that's in the railroad right-of-way currently that's non-conforming conforming again. So we did open those areas up for potential conditional use permits in the new zoning code. And the other was that city-owned property zoned O in the I-40 corridor with a conditional use permit, there is the possibility, and it basically boils down to the golf course. And
yeah,
so
I think that's what we discussed.
Right.
So the city would have to get a conditional use permit too if they wanted to erect a billboard down by the golf course.
It would, yes, it would follow the same process.
Of course, ADOT and all that. Okay, Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
Any further questions from anybody?
Just one really quick. Will this be an LED billboard, or will that discussion take place later?
Well, that discussion would take place during the conditional use permit process if we get to that point. But you can certainly ask the applicant what their intent is.
Yeah, sure, Mr.
Not yet. We got to, are there any further questions from the commission members? All right, I hear none. Thank you, Richard.
All right, thanks.
I want to open it up to the public. Would you, the applicant, like to come up and please state your name?
My name is Traven Pennington. I'm a resident here of Kingman, Arizona. I'm involved in this project, so I think sometimes context is a little important, like so kind of maybe rewind. A couple of years ago, over 2 years ago, I went to work for Angle Homes, and like an early discussion in a brainstorming session that we had was like maybe there's like a home builder, a hometown home builder in Kingman, Arizona, that we'd be one like any unique class to be able to benefit from a billboard, meaning a lot of the homes that we sell are from people from other communities, and a lot of our traffic is that initial point of contact is through our website. So we thought, like, if we had a nice billboard here within the city limits, specifically on I-40, that it said something like, get off at the next exits, home from the 200s, and our website, essentially is what we, from both directions. So very specifically, from the very beginning, we were interested in sites on I-40. And the billboard business is a very highly regulated business. It's not an easy business to get into. It takes a substantial amount of money, investment in parcels, and then there's a lot of these unknowns. You travel a long ways before you get to these general plan amendments. So you got to take some risks early on. So we did dozens of different sites. I've had half a dozen conversations with city staff and Rich over that couple-year period. A couple of them we looked at were off-ramps, but again, there's a lot of rules. You get through your city rules, and then you start applying ADOT rules, and so it's a long list, and distances from off-ramp, distances from other sites. The reason we picked this specific distance in this property is because there's a requirement. It has to be a minimum of 500 feet from the other billboard. So that uncompliant billboard there, next to the railroad tracks, we had to be a minimum distance from there. And we were trying to keep that as close to what we call we'll call it the truck stops or the railroad traps. So that said, as we started on this process probably a couple of years ago and went through a dozen different sites, kind of seeing if this would work. And we arrived at this one. And here we are. And so one of the things is I think that when you go through this process, if there was like a B1 zoning, billboard 1 zoning, that's what we would have got, but there's not, right? There's this one thing, you're going to, we didn't ask for C3 because we wanted C3. That's what you can build billboards on in the city limits, and that dictates a specific size of real estate you have to zone. So all of that is kind of, we've arrived here based on all the city rules. Like, we've tried to every step of the way to get to this point. We have no intention. When I think C3, so I almost think as a suggestion, if there was like a B1 zoning, which was specific for billboards, you could kind of cut. We don't. When I think C3, I think truck stops and Circle K's and liquor stores. That's not what we want to do. We want to build a singular billboard, put it up in the air at I-40, and we are totally prepared to take this quarter-acre site and deed restrict it when we put the CC&Rs in for this subdivision to restrict this piece of land where nobody has to worry about we're going to put a construction yard. We're going to build a billboard, and after the billboard's built, we intend to open it up, sell homes, and then at the base of this billboard, we're going to landscape that, maintain that. That will be part of us maintaining our billboard. Moving on to the future. So I would like to just throw that out there if this was approved, I would at a later date would be happy to bring back some documents that said we've done with that. We've restricted this parcel that can only be used for a billboard. So I'd like to maybe open up for some questions, but I think it is, I know Rich would see it a different way, but I think it is relevant that there is a city billboard right up the street that billboard was built before all those houses were there, and we intend to do the exact same thing here. We're trying to make this least amount of impact on any of the neighbors that are here or any of our future residents. So go ahead.
Thank you so much. Right, what's the height of this billboard? I know it's not constructed yet.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh,
Pull it
sorry
closer
again.
to you, Gary.
Yeah, I just had it on. What would the ultimate height of this billboard be? Sorry.
I don't have the answer to that, but it would be similar. So I-40 at this, I have some slides on here.
Is it 50 feet, Richard?
Mr. Chairman, the maximum height of the billboard is based upon, currently it's based upon the maximum height of the interchange, 40 feet above that. So it would be probably in excess of 60 feet. In the new zoning code, it's going to be a flat 60-foot tall maximum height that would be allowed.
Okay, and
Rich, could you assist me in getting those, pull up the slides?
sure. And Mr. Pennington, do you have an idea if you're going to use like an LED billboard for that, or
We
a shutter
have
billboard?
had considerations. That's a huge option, right? Like to go from billboard, which maybe it's $100,000+ to construct this, to go to that next level, to start plugging in those options, it's probably another $150,000. So I don't have the answer to that question yet, but I will, and if this progresses, I will be able to address this.
Okay.
But it is a consideration and an option we're considering.
I have a question, Mr. Pennington. Is it, make sure I understand you, is the reason that you're wanting to zone this C3 is because the city has no other way for you to zone this for you to have a billboard? It's not because it's literally because of the way that our planning and zoning and our general plan is that you simply cannot get any other type of zoning to put a billboard in? Or may help me understand that.
Jason, so could you repeat that? Give me the short version.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I understood the reason you want C3 is because there's nothing else you can do that can go there.
Back to my point, if there was a B1 zoning for billboard 1 zoning, that would be where we're at. We have no intentions, again, C3, other than a billboard, that's the only reason we need C3. And I agree that the way C3 flows off the tongue and you relate that to residential, I get everyone's concern. That's not what we intend to do. We intend to put up a billboard on I-40 for the benefit of marketing our community. I think the bigger reach on here is when you look at here, these are the things that we're protecting. I would like to, this location this is where that billboard's going to be. As you're going this way, there's going to be a billboard. I would like to go also, would make a comparison of some of the billboards that we have here in our community. This right here is the city owned, I'm going to say semantics, but the city owns this parcel right here, and they have a billboard sign on it. It's approximately about 2,200 feet to the east of our side. So when I discovered this, it wasn't that aha moment, but I was like, okay, maybe there is something in this site. If we go in and we build this, put up the sign, finish that, then come in and build the homes, that there may be a method to be able to lay this out. But this billboard would only be for Angle Homes use. We don't intend to get in the sign business and lease this out. We are going to use this and market this and keep this sign looking maintained and fresh for our benefit, but also I believe there is an economic benefit to our community.
Thank you.
So this is right here. These are in red. These are the signs that we have on I-40 that don't market our community. And these ones in black down below, these are actually the signs on I-40 that market our community. And I think if you throw a hometown home builder in the mix, I think there is an economic development component. We're inviting people to get off at the next exit, come look at our communities and come look at our town. And there is every one of those homes that sells does generate revenue in the form of sales tax and then also in the form of fees and revenue. So I'd be happy to speak to any of this or.
So Travis, I'm assuming with earlier conversations with both you and Tyler, you guys already own the property there on Rainbow Loop, Prescott Street, and Beverly?
Correct.
That whole thing, so you're just wanting to designate the red zone commercial for your billboard?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions of Travis from the commission members? Please state your name.
Doug Engel. I just wanted to answer one question. There was a question, I can't remember if it was Gary or somebody asked the question about, no, I think it was Chambers that, about developing this parcel. I mean, it's not a real sightly parcel. I mean, you got the truck stop and the freeway and the railroad, but we are going to develop it. We're just waiting on this issue. If we can get the billboard, we're giving up 2 lots to do that, to put the billboard in there, and then we're going to proceed with development. The plans are already done and approved. We just have to update them to some of the current standards with sewer and water. We've already met with engineering to do that. So we're just waiting on this issue, and then we're going to build the billboard. And all those people that buy the houses, they're going to know what they're getting. It's not going to be a surprise to them. So it'll be their choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the applicants, from the commission members? All right, I hear none. I'll open it up to commission members.
I guess I feel like trying to weigh if a billboard is going to make it worse. It's like there's so much wrong with that area already. That if a billboard would help them fill the land, part of me thinks that would be a good idea. And then part of me thinks, well, I guess a billboard would make it even worse than it already is. But I guess worse but filled is better. I don't know. What does everybody else think?
I tend to agree that all the sales tax generated, more new home sales, more development in a responsible way, cleaning up that entire property that I used to live in Rancho Santa Fe and drove my kids to school at the academy, and I did that for 7 years driving by that lot, and so it's quite an eyesore, and to see it fully developed, and Angle Homes does a great job around here in this community. So I think that the goods that definitely outweigh the bads. That's for certain. And I don't know that I would even notice the sign any more than anything else. I would just nice to see that neighborhood finished and really well taken care of.
And I agree. There's already a billboard in the area. There's already a truck stop. There's already different eyesores there. I don't think it would change that piece of property. And if they're going to develop it and bring more into the community, I think it's a good idea. I mean, there's already a billboard there,
I can definitely see your guys' arguments. Sorry, this is Commissioner Waters. I just have 2 concerns. One is that Angle Homes will own this parcel in perpetuity. Eventually we could have some of these same negative billboards going up in here. And also just the fact that the buffer around the parcel was 300 feet. There's some people on Central or just a few roads away that likely will be impacted by a 60-foot billboard, that could potentially be LED. They didn't buy their home or have it built with that in mind. So I do have some concerns. Honestly, I would like to see the buffer extended and invite some of these people that are already here a couple blocks away to chime in.
So are you making a recommendation to table it and to address all of those residents, extend the buffer? Because I do see your point. I mean, with 300 feet around there, it's not hitting that whole community there.
I am, actually, and I understand the appellants are, you know, Mr. Engel and Pennington made a very good persuasive a pitch for this, but at the same time, I take it there's nobody here from the community to discuss this.
Correct.
We might want to go fishing just to make sure they're okay with this, because again, this is going to be very big, you know, and right in their backyard, basically.
Okay.
So,
Well, then do we, by doing so, are we opening up a can of worms, and then we can say, let's invite everybody, because we've been inundated with other projects in the city when people didn't live within the buffer zone, and we were flooded here. So are we opening up a can of worms by saying, well, let's invite more people in? I mean, the people already know. I mountain bike right through that lot, just to be different sometimes, and that's, as you probably well know, we all well know, that whole area, I don't know what people were thinking back in the day when they approved all this. It's not, and that, hate to say this, but that area is not, the people aren't keeping up with the properties that you would think people would want to keep up with, but that, you know, that's a different subject. I just got one thing in question, and with, I happened to run in today in my mountain bike excursion with Travin, and we were talking, would Engel Homes be willing to share half the billboard or some way with the city promoting, being that you're wanting to promote your development and bring in people to interstate, you know, it's two sides to a billboard. I'm just throwing it out, not saying, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you going to share in the cost of it with us?
You know, I don't know what, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, the idea is there's whatever, 80,000 people driving
Yep.
on the interstate each day. And a lot of those are from California, and that's who a lot of our buyers are, from California. And they, you know, we get business off the internet certainly, but most of those people driving by didn't know that what Keeneman has to offer. And so I think we are marketing Keeneman. That's what we're marketing, is we're saying, get off the freeway here, stop and visit, stop and look, stop, spend some money, move here. So if you look at all those other billboards that are out there in Keeneman right now, whether it be McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, they're not marketing Keeneman. We are marketing Keeneman more than anybody, because we're saying, come here, build a house, we're economical. And so to me, that is the best marketing for the city of Keeneman, economic development wise, that we can have. And, you know, Gary, to address your question, I'm not sure legally, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but that you guys can change the rules, because the city of Keeneman has that rule, and we've been through other rezones and general plan amendments, and they have a rule that says you got to notify people within a certain distance. And they've passed other projects doing that. And so to say that now you're going to change it for this particular person, I think legally you probably couldn't do that. If you check with your attorney, you probably have to follow the rules, that unless you change the rule for everybody, right? So, but I think the billboard's going to market Keeneman. That's the whole idea, is, you know, yeah, you can go get medical marijuana in Laughlin. I mean, that's what people are advertising, keep going. Or you can go to Petro and buy your gas and not pay Keeneman sales tax. But we're marketing the community. That's our whole purpose. Stop here, buy, live here, because we have a good community.
understood. Yeah, I know some people that have actually bought billboards as part of their retirement plan, you know, and they buy billboards from other people. So if you create a billboard, Engel Homes, it won't always necessarily be owned by Engel Homes, you know, and they're very lucrative, you know, it's an income
It's really
property.
hard for us to hear.
Oh, sorry. I have my microphone on, I'm sorry.
Well, we're agreeing to put restrictions that it will only be used as a billboard, that would be the sole purpose of it. But, yeah, I don't know if I die someday, I guess somebody else could buy it. And,
Well, that's my job, is to look out for the community, you know,
Right.
not just for your
Right.
lifetime, but for multiple people. So we've
Right.
got to make these decisions.
But I think with his stating, I think we as the city council could be a stipulation, if it was to be approved, that it stays.
Okay.
Kingman Homes only, and, you know.
Yeah, it's gonna be for marketing Kingman. I mean, we've been searching around for several years trying to find a location to do this. So,
Thank you, Doug.
any other questions?
Yeah, I was just going to say also regarding the buffer question, did the buffer get extended when the truck stop was allowed to expand in the recent years? You know, again, was there a buffer? Did we go talk to how many blocks away did we go and say, hey guys, there's going to be another 40 trucks parked here idling at night. Are you okay with that? And so I guess that kind of goes along with when do you decide to extend the buffer and bring in more people to comment on something versus what's already standard?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I myself in that area, I'm very familiar with it, and I hate to say I agree with Doug and Travin, but what does a medical marijuana billboard in Nevada have to do promoting Kingman? What does a law firm begin an accident? What's that got to do with promoting Kingman? Not one of those billboards that are there in existence, and we can't, I'm assuming we can't regulate them. Nothing to do with Kingman in here. We got someone that wants to promote his business and promote, hey, people come in here and let's come in here and buy a home. Let me look.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject in a couple of things. We just want to make sure we don't get too far afield on the subject matter. It's really just about the minor general plan amendment at this point. Yes, we know that they're intending to build a billboard on the property. That's the purpose of it. But we're getting too far afield in talking about what the purpose of it is and things like that.
Fair enough.
We just want to stick to this.
Yep, fair enough.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay, I just want to say one thing. This just really reminds me of the last time we made a minor plan amendment to sign height, and we were promised one particular thing, which never happened. And so it just makes me a little reticent to want to approve another one when honestly we could do a minor plan amendment and then they could build anything they want on there.
I'm also reticent to do a minor amendment because of the precedent it sets. I'm hesitant to change parcels in the middle of a residential area to commercial, even though I really believe that Engel Homes would honor what they're saying about not using it for commercial property. And I really think that the landscaping and the work that they do is very appropriate and appealing. I'm hesitant to set that precedent and to make that change. It opens up the possibility for other people to then do the same thing potentially.
Any further questions of commission members? All right, I need a motion to either approve or deny.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? I hear none. Roll call vote, please, Don.
Chairman Frederickson,
Approve.
Commissioner Noble,
No.
Commissioner Goss,
No.
Commissioner Shores,
Approve.
Commissioner Marino,
Approve.
Commissioner Waters,
Deny.
Commissioner Swap,
No.
What's the tally?
Noble, no, Goss, no, Shores, yes. Marino, yes. Waters, no. Swap, no. And I forgot what your answer was.
Approved. So 4-3 denied.
Denied.
All right, thank you. All right, item E, rezoning case RZ 21-0001. A request from Traven Pennington, applicant in High Desert Land Development, LLC, property owner to rezone certain property from R2, residential multiple family low density, to C3, commercial service business. The subject property is located at 3180 and 3186 Beverly Avenue and is approximately 12,000 square feet. The property is further described as Lot 6 and 7, Block 1, Serena Grace Meadows, Tract 6006, APN 311-33-006 and 311-33-007.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, so this is the associated zoning case with the minor general plan amendment we just heard. So at this point, based upon the commission's recommendation of denial, the zoning to C3 also would not be in conformance with the general plan, as it would still be, based upon your recommendation, intermediate density residential 9 to 16 units per acre. So I can go through the full presentation, but basically at this point, sorry, I forgot to take off my mask. Our recommendation would be for denial on the basis that the general plan would not be consistent with the zoning of the property. So that would be our recommendation at this point. But I could go through the full presentation if you so desire.
Well, I suppose it would probably be a futile point since it's already been denied, so
Right.
I don't see a point.
Okay. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Richard.
you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5, announcement by commission members.
Sir, you still do need to hold, you have to take a vote on it, so,
Oh, sorry.
and open it up for public hearing. I'm sorry, you do need to do that part. Okay.
My fault. Let me open this up to any further discussion amongst, you have any questions with Richard?
I don't.
Open it up to the public. Please step forward and state your name.
My name is Traven Pennington. I'm a resident of Kingman. I would just like to just underline and restate, there was no sleight of hand or misrepresenting it. There's this process to build billboards in the city of Kingman, and we went through the entire, crossed every T and checked every I. So it's just important for everybody to know that there's a process out there, and we attempted to follow that. And if bias or precedent is like one of the components, then maybe we need to go back and look at that, because your guys' actions, they're expected here. And so I just would like to share, there was no sleight of hand, and we followed the process that exists out there. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions from the public? All right, I'll close it off. Thank you. Any further discussions amongst commission?
I just had a question about what Mr. Pennington was saying. Was he saying that they've gone through the process to try to purchase and build a billboard in the areas that are approved and there's nothing available at all?
I believe I'll answer what I think you're asking, but early on in this process, we vetted 6 or 7 different sites throughout Kingman. And for instance, the LDS Church on the south side of the freeway has a big piece of property that probably has the appropriate zoning, but I doubt they're going to put billboards on that site. So there's a lot of sites. The Fairgrounds has a beautiful site. They don't want billboards on that. So there's a lot of sites, and then a lot of the smaller commercial parcels that exist, say next to the Harley shop or next to the Academy of Learning. These sites, these available sites that meet all the requirements for ADOT, those sites are taken. So I don't want to say that there's not billboard sites on I-40, because that would be a misrepresentation. there's not a lot of sites that meet the criteria to do billboards in Kingman. So if this is like, maybe that's what we're deciding to do. We're going to shut the door on billboards in Kingman, and we're okay with that, and that's maybe the conversation that we're having today. So, but did I answer your question, or did I muddy the waters?
I think you answered my question. I think what I understand you saying is that there are not a lot of available options to build billboards.
Correct, and this is the only one we own, yes.
Okay.
And Travis said something interesting about setting precedent, and I guess it's too late for that now, but it seems like they did everything they were supposed to do the right way, and were still told no. So how does anyone ever overcome that? I guess that's just a question for the ether and nothing to discuss today, but yeah, how does anyone ever overcome that?
Well, and I think that's something for the general plan. I think part of the general plan that we've been working on with Kingman is to try to actually eliminate a lot of the billboards and things like that are popping up. And so if we want to go back and change that and start allowing for more of that, but I think we were trying to not have so much clutter and things like that popping up.
One last.
Travis Penning, one more state. Would there be, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, but if we were worried about billboards' impact on the residents of Kingman, is there a thought there that maybe billboards on I-40 are maybe the way to eliminate some of that heartache? Like, we're not searching for a billboard on 66 or Stockton Hill, because that's not the demographic that we're necessarily going after. So I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. All right. No more further questions from commission members. I'll close that off, and being that it's been denied on item D, no point in any further going.
Mr. Chairman, we would ask that you still take a vote on this item because it is.
Oh,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we need a motion? Okay, I need a motion on item E.
Motion to deny.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All righty, roll call vote.
Commissioner Frederickson?
Geez, that's a good one. Being that we already been denied, I'm gonna say, I still follow with approve.
Commissioner Marino?
I approve in protest.
Commissioner Noble?
So I just want to make a clarification. The motion was to deny, so by approving, we're
Thank you.
going with deny, correct?
That's my understanding, sir.
That's correct.
I deny the
yes
denial.
vote is to
in
deny.
protest. I deny the denial.
Do we want to start over?
Motion to approve? Hi, I'm lost.
What was your response, Commissioner Noble?
I'm approving the denial.
Thank you. Commissioner Goss?
Also approving the denial.
Commissioner Waters?
Approving the denial.
Commissioner Swap?
Same, approve the denial.
Commissioner Shores?
I approve.
All right,
6-1.
motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Item 5, announcements by commission members, limited to announcements, availability, or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for report from staff. No discussion on any of these items. I hear none. I need a motion to adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Um,
Opposed? None? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, new members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, new members.
Well,
Thank
so
you.
much.